Hi, I'm Mike Rocha, co-founder of Revolve Impact, a social-driven creative agency based here in Los Angeles. I've always been an artist. I was born in Oxnard and raised in Ventura off of the love of punk music and skateboarding. I've been privileged to be the son of two incredible teachers. My father was very instrumental in the Chicano movement, so being an artivist, as a lot of people would say, has just always been who I've been. My first job was actually at a concert hall. I was barely turning 13. My dad got me a permit, and I worked at the Ventura Concert Theater. And it was an amazing opportunity for me because I got to see every possible genre of music. But here I was a 13-year-old just seeing how to run an arts institution. Being a musician myself, just amazing artistry, you know, and musicians well known, from Peter Gabriel to Pearl Jam to Morris Day and the Time. Like, just being immersed in this was very eye-opening, but also made me who I am because I was always immersed around music and sound. And so that was my first job, and I worked there from 13 up until my first year in college at UCLA. And it's still one of my favorite concert halls in the world. Nostalgia, but also it's just a beautiful venue in downtown Ventura. The fact that I was working in a creative industry showed me that, hey, it was a struggle, but you could do it. And my colleagues and peers, they loved to create this environment where folks could be transported from the everyday hassles of life and just relish in the music, you know? And so it was a lot of values and a lot of things I learned from that first job. My life profoundly changed when I attended UCLA. I was 17 when I got accepted, and first time away from home, and first time in an environment with so many different kind of folks also. And it was the height of student organizing in the mid to late 90s, specifically around anti-immigration bills like 187, the end of affirmative action. I was the last class that entered under affirmative action. And I always tell folks that I'm proud to be an affirmative action baby because I took the SAT 2 to 3 times and scored, I think my highest score was like an 800. It was super low. But, you know, through our organizing, a lot of us got into student government, and I was privileged enough to be a student body president. And I always reminded people, like, I got in here because of the movements and struggles of the 60s and 70s. And so that was the crux of me learning how to be an organizer. And then I did direct service work in the nonprofit realm, and then ended up working 10 years in local city government and learning how to do policy, and then went to learn how to do state policy. But I just saw that there wasn't a creative agency that was really rooted in the community. A lot of kind of these social impact agencies now are driven by predominantly like white cis men. I just thought because these issues are disproportionately impacting people of color and indigenous folks, like that we needed to have our own kind of community, that all of us are impacted by the issues we work on. All of us are artists. All of us know the power of arts and organizing and activism. And so Revolve Impact was really birthed out of that continuation of a legacy of artists all throughout time that have really painted the picture of what this world could be. Made real these visions that our ancestors have always known was possible, but whether it's through paint or poetry or music or whatever, we wanted to create our own playground, you know, and get paid for it. And we're 7 years in, so we learned a little bit along the way. One of the most important things I would love to share around just youth and activism is that every social movement in history has been driven by young people, right? And so when I keep referring to my father, he was young. He was like in his teens and early 20s in the founding of Mecha, for example. Or if you look at the Black Panthers, like they were in the early 20s. And so I think not just idealism, but the energy of young people is what has always pushed us to be a more egalitarian and just society. So first I would just say is that we're always going to be dependent on you and on young people to challenge us, to hold us accountable, to move us forward, to model. I look at my daughter who's 17, and I learn from her all the time, constantly, just in terms of everything around different labels of how we identify, you know, to what's the latest thing on TikTok, for example, right? But these are all new tools that young people are mastering and providing into the world. So, and then the second thing I would just say is that to me, I don't see like caring about the world or activism as separate to my identity. So it's like a way of life. The same way I want to make sure I'm a present and loving father and husband, it's the same way I view like how I want to show up for the community, and especially those communities that are most marginalized or disproportionately impacted by a lot of these issues that we work on. And so I would just say I'm excited because this generation before us, or this younger generation, is the most diverse, the most connected, the largest in human history. So just imagining what the future holds gives me great hope and excitement, because I know who my daughter is and who my son is and who you are. And so the world is in color now. And I say that very excited because the many experiences and identities we have will be able to bring forth into this new time. I had a mentor once tell me that one of the, how do you put it? To find your purpose in life, find out what you're most passionate about. Because we all, I believe, are born with unique gifts and talents when we come into at least this plane. And so what I would encourage folks to do is, as hard as it is, because it's even hard for me, is to block out all the noise of your parents or the adults or society in general that's telling you who you should be or how you should operate and be in this world, and really like, what are you the most passionate about? And then you put your passion and you connect that to service, and that is what you're destined to do in this lifetime, I believe. It's like your purpose is your passion plus service together. And so I would just say, like, you know, what is that thing that keeps you up at night that you're really excited about, you know? Is it fashion? Is it business? Is it writing? And just follow that fire as far as you can take it. You could create a business and a future off of what you love to do. And a lot of people that have continued to inspire me continue to prove that every single day. You know, we're led by our hearts and not by our head. And that's the role of artists, I think, is we know how to touch into emotions and experiences that are universal. And so I think art is absolutely fundamental to transforming our world, because we allow not only the pathways to get to where we want to get, but we create the visions that we know are indeed possible. Adrienne Maree Brown's incredible activist writer, and she always says, we're living in someone else's imagination right now. And so someone thought it was okay to cage children, for example. And so the same way someone thought that and made that kind of belief and vision populate, we can create a different vision and a different way of being and interacting with each other, and a different way of being in community with the planet and people. So again, I think art is life and art is breath. And I think everyone actually is an artist at the heart, because the way that you engage with the world, depending on your identities, you have to negotiate and figure out how to, whether that's a teacher or a boss or a lover, whoever. And so that alone and that analysis makes you a creative in my mind, because you got to be very thoughtful. At Revolve, all of us are creatives, so all of us are artists. So the way that we show up is always with a very creative lens. And so we really think of ourselves as, how do we become a part of existing movements, so we're never parachuting in, but, you know, like I said, we're all a part of these communities that are affected by the issues we work on, and so we are intentional about partnership. So everything that we do as an agency is informed by, led by those grassroots organizations that are really at the forefront of these issues, and so it's all about community and relationship for us. And then with our gifts and talents, which is that of like storytelling and digital media and communications, we're able to augment and supplement some of these incredible campaigns so that they reach more people. And then one thing I think I'd be remiss not to say is, we don't see awareness as impact anymore. If awareness is not tied into what's the structural or policy changes that you're trying to move, then we're not shifting power. And in this time of trying to reimagine a new economic system and a new just society in general, it's imperative for us to start to really questioning and being critical of existing systems and policies out there. And so what we do is we really do see ourselves as a power building agency. Power building meaning like let's disperse power, right? Let's ensure that people have access, equal access, equitable access to resources, to healthcare, to education, to everything that would allow us to be safe, healthy, and thriving as a people and as a community. So we got approached a few years ago by Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. It's a big nonprofit. Carrie Kennedy runs it. She's the daughter of Robert F. Kennedy, who was assassinated when he was running for president. And they approached us about being a part of a campaign to run the largest single bailout in United States history. And so bailout meaning most people are incarcerated in jail because they're too poor to afford bail to come out. And so they approached us, and what that meant for us as a team is we came together and strategized on potential, everything from the name and branding, and then working again in partnership, in collaboration with those at the forefront of transforming the criminal legal system in New York. We came up with a campaign called Mass Bailout. And so Revolve Impact's role in that was really running all of the creative. So that meant social, digital, crisis communications, op-eds, then also the community engagement side, producing in-person events with the community, with influencers, and really continuing to be on the forefront so that every week for that month, there was some type of press coverage, some type of awareness and education of why this was important. And at the same time, because it was about, shaming really the elected officials to say, hey, if you wanted to, you could end bail now. We have trained over 1,000 residents in New York to go post bail. We raised millions of dollars for them to go post bail for someone that they have never met before. And through the month of October of that year, we helped free 105 women and children from Rikers Island in New York City. And we did it just in time for them to come home for the holidays. I've seen the effects of mass incarceration on my primos and tias and tios and everybody. And so I know that the system itself is designed for us to come back. And so what we did in Mass Bailout is we gave every person that we bailed out a cell phone so that we could remind them of their court hearing. We gave everyone a free Metro Pass because we knew some of the main reasons folks were missing their court date was because they didn't have transportation or they forgot when the date was. And because of that, over 90% of the folks we bailed out showed up for their hearing and are still free on their homes in New York. And so, again, our role, I think, was really around the communications, the branding, the community engagement piece, the influencer engagement piece, running the digital. And so it was this whole kind of ecosystem of creatives moving this narrative and this campaign forward. I think social media is an important tool. It's not the only tool. I think in COVID, you've seen a lot of, because of we had to be in quarantine, a lot more folks mobilizing online. But I'd say, my style of organizing and who I'm inspired by really came from the Zapatista movement in southern Mexico and Chiapas. And it's really like a one-on-one, like proximate, and to me, it's about building local power. And so if we're not directly engaging with local residents in a particular community, I think we're missing the piece. And I'm saying that because social media is a part of it, but it's not, to me, the heart of it. Because a lot of these policies impacting us on a daily basis are happening on a local level. Yeah, we have a federal government. Yeah, we have like a global economic structure. But at the end of the day, everything that happens on a national level is always a local issue. So if you look at Ferguson, started as a local issue. If you look at any uprising in the last, 50 years, the Watts Rebellion or Rodney King, it was something that happened locally that blew up because these conditions are all over the country. And so I'd say social media is important to communicate that, but it has to be tied to everyday acts of organizing. What continues to propel me and motivate me is the people and the tribe community that I'm a part of. And so one thing that I want to implore is that movements are made up of people, and people change lives, not programs. And so, finding, like even right now with, Pete to the left of you or right of you, we make these relationships through life. And once you find someone that shares those same kind of values and passion, really hold on to that, because those are the ones that will be there when it's difficult. Those are the ones that will be there when you're celebrating. But again, I think in terms of the modeling, life is so much about relation and relationships that I can list multiple campaigns, but when I really dissect it, it's because I got to spend time with people. That made me a better person and that I learn from and I grow with. And so, just the importance of centering people. COVID has taught us what we've always known, which is nothing is impossible. And as an organizer, so many times we would be met with resistance from the state or the system saying, oh, we can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. And with COVID, it showed like you could. And I've been really doing a lot of analyzing. If we go back to like Zapatistas and what they shared and others have shared before them and after, it's really interesting when we look at the current economic system, right? And capitalism to me is like the real sickness right now. We're talking about COVID and pandemics, but if you look at the way we're structured economically, and if you just look at the last 100 years, almost every 7 years, we have some type of economic collapse. So whether it was like the .com, or whether it was the housing crisis, or whether it was COVID, but the interesting thing about that is they always label it as the external. Oh, it's because of the housing. Oh, it's because of the .com. Oh, it's about COVID. But it's like, yeah, let's tease out. It's actually the same economic structure. And I'm trying to model and build systems and companies that are the alternative to capitalism, to be honest, because we can live in a society where we don't have to be competing against each other. We can live in a society where we don't have to be so antagonistic or have such extreme inequality on so many levels, And so I think if anything, COVID has allowed me to be with my family more, but also allowed me to see this abundance of mutual aid networks that have sprouted up all around the world. And now the real challenges, or opportunity, not challenges, how do we grow those mutual aid networks to scale so that we're relying on each other, that we can be driven by values of love and generosity rather than one of like scarcity and competition. And so my world that I hope to be a part of for my children, to co-create with them, is one just based upon that, where our basic needs are met and we're able to thrive and be the beautiful artists that we all are.